Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I'm delighted to be joined on this I was going to say sunny summer's day, but it's not, it's March, Jesus Christ, this sunny afternoon by Craig Cairns. I think I've just about got through that. How's it going, Craig?
Very good, very good. It's very springy. It's very springy outside. It has been for a couple of weeks actually, save for a couple of bouts of bad weather. It's been surprisingly nice in recent times.
Yes, it has. I'm going to Chicago on Monday, where it is very cold apparently. So,
You can get that
just
in the northern states.
yes, yeah. I thought. Usually it's just winter's more extreme, and then we'll get there, and it'll be probably nicer than it is here. But doesn't seem to be the case. But we are here to discuss Heart of Midlothian Football Club, and before we do, Heart Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. You can find all the information about that in the description. Now, we're going to chat about a couple of things over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. And we're going to jump off firstly by talking about Adam Forrester, because it is the international break and there are 9 players away on international duty, both first team and in the kind of from the B team. Craig, you wrote a piece today, or it's on the site now. You can find out a bit more about who's away and when they're away and when they're playing. For example, Alfie Osborne, who's training with the Scotland national team on Monday, was captaining the under-17s. This afternoon, that game is still going on, I think. Yeah, it's still be going on.
They equalised just after half time.
Okay. Scotland. So that's one of 3 games. And then on Friday, the Scotland under-21s play. Adam Forrester is in that alongside Liam McFarlane and Finlay Pollock. But Finlay Pollock won't be joining up till later because he's playing for Raith Rovers against Partick Thistle on Friday night. But with it being the international break and those players being away for international duty, I thought it'd be quite good to use Adam Forrester as a jumping off point, because it was his first ever call up to the Scotland youth teams, this 21s camp, and there's a good chance he might make his debut on Friday against the Republic of Ireland. I think it's in Spain. And tying in the fact that you have been writing a piece on Adam Forrester and his impact and how he has performed in the first team since stepping up from the B team. So we'll go into different elements of it, and I've got a couple of radars that I can bring up, can maybe help illustrate the strengths and the weaknesses that he's faced within this Scottish Premiership when he's played for Hearts. But Craig, without giving away too much of what you're going to be writing that's going to go on Friday, what is your kind of key takeaways from your research into and your look into Forrester?
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult. It is going to be quite difficult. I think to kind of add to the intro that you've given there, I think, and one of the jumping off points for me anyway, when I started writing this, it was months ago, and sometimes we start to write things and then we wait for a moment where it's a good point to kind of finish it or update it or whatever. And that's the situation I was in with that. And even then, my jumping off point was James Wilson is getting all the limelight. Adam Forrester's kind of quietly going under the radar and doing pretty well. And I think that's the case even more so now, with Wilson grabbing all the headlines, on the verge of making history. And Adam Forrester, as you said, has got his first ever call-up to the Scotland youth levels. And I think the first comment that's come in before we started talking about him is obviously taking it off the title of today's show. The Gorgie Boys podcast is Forrester gets a lot of unwarranted criticism. Yes, he still has plenty to learn, but it's nowhere near as bad as made out to be. It's not quite the gist or the way I've worded it, but it's the kind of similar sentiment that I suppose the overarching thing that I'm trying to get across in the article is that this is a guy that was captain in the B team at the start of the season, and he's been the most dependable right back at the club this season, even though there's been a lot of disruption in terms of position. The positions around him, the right sided centre back and the right midfielder, have changed incessantly, and he's been in and out. Sometimes for the good, sometimes just for like normal rotation. Like somebody else is preferred for a bigger game or something like that. Sometimes it's been just so he's not kind of being given too much too soon and all that kind of stuff. But he's kind of come through it. Oh, your goalkeeper's good. He kind of came onto a game a bit before he was sold, but he certainly proved to be more dependable than Taylor in recent weeks, and he's played more often than not in recent times. And I think that's you're going to get some mistakes within that. I think that's the point that the Gorgie Boys podcast was trying to make there. You're going to get mistakes within that, and he seems to be coming through it well. He bounces back. His head doesn't go down, and he bounces back with a good performance. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about his season so far.
Yeah, I would add. You mentioned the right side centre backs changed, the right midfielders changed. I would also add in the formations changed as well.
Yeah, I've mentioned that in the piece as well. Yeah,
yeah, which again you need to adapt to. Your summation, it's hard to because it's hard to know just the general feeling around Forrester, but certainly I've got pals who aren't his biggest fan, to say the least, and I've certainly seen been told had it messaged me or chatting with fans where there is a bit of skepticism, just a bit of kind of doubt around Forrester and his long-term standing within the Hearts first team. What I would say is that this is a guy who is still 19 and he's made the step up to play for the Hearts first team, having been started in the lower league, that it's never going to be plain sailing. It's never going to be like a upward trajectory progress. It's not going to be linear. There's going to be peaks and troughs. And
definitely,
while I say there's going to be peaks and troughs, I actually think over the piece he's actually he's not been a Michael Smith 7 out of 10, but I would say he's probably been like kind of on average, kind of just a 6 out of 10.
But minimum.
Yeah,
that's the minimum you're getting from him, whereas you're getting wild swings from Taylor. Taylor showed that against Rangers and against Celtic, he showed that he can be a better player, I think. He showed that he's got it in him, especially attacking-wise. Looks like he could do some damage. Whereas Forrester hasn't had... Okay, he's had a couple of below-average performances. He got rings run round him by Duke at Pittodrie when Hearts were down to 10 men, remember. But he's not really had a performance like Taylor had at Easter Road, I would say. So, yes, I would say that as well. And I would also say if you're a young fullback, and I don't know, I think being pretty dependable is I think it's a good start anyway.
Yeah, so I'll bring in a couple of the metrics in a second. My biggest takeaway for me watching him is that he plays he seems like a very different player to what he was like under Liam Fox of the B team. He was the captain for the B team, and it was almost given like a free role from right back. He was really good in the attacking sense. He would play his part in the build up of the team, and he'd be popping up on the edge of the box and shooting. And it's almost like a contrast where he had this kind of important role within the attacking phase or the attacking play for the B team, whereas now he's like you said, he's came in and he's been fine. He's been fine, but it's been more on the he just seems like more of just a stereotypical right-sided fullback. Like
that seems obvious, though, doesn't it? Because when you're the captain, you're playing in the 5th tier.
Yes, yeah.
And you're the size he is, you can understand him kind of taking the mantle a lot more and like imposing himself even from right back. But when you're promoted to the first team, I suppose it's then more about getting the defensive side first. And I don't know, who knows, he could grow into that and add that to his game as he gets older. I mean, I'm not saying that this guy's necessarily go on and be first choice right back for Hearts in the future. I just think it's been quite encouraging. And I think that the fact that he came in during a time of crisis like Wilson did and has managed to make himself a regular, firstly in the squad and now in the team, I think there's a lot to be said for that. And it comes at a time where there seems to be something happening with the youth at Hearts. There finally seems to be fruits of the labour coming through, the likes of the performance schools and the academy and things like that. It seems to be finally bringing some results.
Yeah, it'll be certainly. There's certainly encouraging signs, and you hope to be that it's that consistent stream. We've obviously seen a fair few make their debut or be around the first team fold. Just on looking at his strengths and weaknesses, you're watching of Forrester and what you've written. Is there anything that's kind of stands out, good or bad, about him?
I mentioned the time where Duke kind of rinsed them over and over again. I think that kind of shows up, and I had a quick look at the radars and stuff, and I think that kind of shows up that he gets dribbled past more often,
yes,
than the league average.
So just for I should have introduced this, but I've just put up a radar of the kind of more the defensive aspects of a fullback. So you'll see, for those watching on YouTube, the red is Forrester and the blue is the league average. And without getting too granular, too nerdy, essentially you're looking for the red colour Forrester to be close to the outside of the centre. If that's beyond the blue, then that means he's performing better than the league average. And we can see that the three metrics is not performing the better than the league average, and in the defensive sense are being basically dribbled past. There's two dribbling aspects there and fouls. So it does show that, and I think that you probably get that in the eye test when watching him. It was that he does struggle, especially if teams are look to get him one-on-one or look to go down Hearts' right and try and expose him.
Firstly, before I can respond to that, I'd love to know what their definition of errors is, because according to this, he's had 0 errors.
Yeah.
One of the best in the league. I'd love to see how that's measured and where they've got that from. These things are sometimes not gospel. But to add to what you're saying about getting dribbled past, I think that has to be seen in the context of the formations that he's been playing in. Now, he's either been playing mostly in a 4-2-4 with the person in front of him changing constantly, or he's been playing more recently in a diamond, and you saw, was it the goal Hearts conceded against St Johnstone or something? I can't remember. There was one where he was too narrow. There was a game where he was too narrow.
Yes.
Taylor did it at Easter Road as well. And that's a young defender. I mean, I don't know if he ever would have played a diamond in the Lowland League under Liam Fox. So that could be like a completely new experience to him. And it's a young defender being asked to do a lot more one-on-one defending than you would ideally want, I would imagine. So yes, that could be a perceived weakness, but it's also him playing in a system where he's having to do quite a bit of one-on-one defending on the sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a few encouraging metrics to take. So again, this is just a kind of similar radar. He's like on the ball. There's not too many like open play. He's not. We've seen it with Hearts. The left hand side has been very productive, whereas the right hand side he's not. He's putting a few decent crosses, but it's still
3 assists, 2 for Penrice, I think.
Yeah. He's putting a few crosses, but again, that's probably an element of the game. I think you just look at Forrester as a whole. It's because of his age. It's like all aspects of his game need to improve, but it's not as if it's having to improve from a low floor. Mm-hmm. If like steps are made, then he can make big jumps. One thing that stands out is how good he is in there for a fullback. That's certainly something that that stood out for me, and it's always beneficial to have your defenders in Scottish football be able to head the ball. So yeah, I would, going back to what you said, I think is Adam Forrester the long-term right back for Hearts? Certainly not in the medium term. I think the short term, I think he is. He's got this spot over Gerald Taylor. Well, come on to Danny Cow ask a question about Taylor. I'll bring that on. Bring that in a second. But looking ahead to next season, I think right back is. So I may as well just bring that. Danny Cow asked, "Do you think Gerald Taylor will be retained or sent back?" At the moment, I don't think he'll be a Hearts player next season. He wants to be a Hearts player next season, but I don't think. I don't think the fact he's not kind of held down the right back position says a lot. But I do think it's an area that Hearts will probably prioritise as one to improve in the summer. Yeah, and then it's a case of Forrester. A case of Forrester being a backup, where I think he's probably better suited.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision will be made either whether Forrester continues to do what he's done this season, or whether they find a loan for him for next season, because he's jumped ahead. They were essentially preparing to...
Yes.
But when they brought him into the first team, they were essentially preparing to wait until January, find a suitable loan club and send him out for the rest of the season. So he's kind of jumped ahead a step. So there is a possible scenario where he goes out on loan next season, be that for the first half or for the full season. But that would require Hearts signing 2 right backs, because I agree with you. I don't think Taylor will have done enough to catch the eye out. Not to catch the eye, that's not even the right word. You can't really miss him. But enough to want Critchley. I was saying this about Grant the other day. Critchley is going to want to be able to bring in as many of his own players as he wants, as he can, I think. And I'd say Taylor's in a different conversation from Grant. I think Grant's maybe got a chance. I don't really think Taylor has done enough to show that he'll be retained for next season. It's a shame, because there is something there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame that he's got injured. It looks... it was a shame that he got injured early in the season. It would have been interesting to see if he had settled after that initial up and down period. And now that there's also the cost factor in it, and just how Hearts have evolved with Jamestown and the new manager. So loads of different factors at play. In terms of anyone else, Taylor, of course, is on international duty. Is there any others that you're looking forward to see, or keen to see how they do during the international break?
Well, he's actually just been mentioned, Finlay Pollock, with 5 goals in the last 9 games, and Gorgie Boys podcast is asking whether he will have a spot next season. Now, at Hearts, I think what will probably happen at the start of next season is that Hearts will have these guys around the first team at the start of the season, and then it's about making an impression, and it'll again be decided about. I mean, Finlay, you probably be better to answer this, but are we at the stage now with Finlay Pollock where if he doesn't come back and is given a chance at Hearts next season, then is that the point where it's like, well, he probably needs to find a new club rather than hanging about Hearts even longer on the fringes?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. He's got another year on his deal. If I remember correctly, he's got next season. So I think he's one of those players that, like you said, will come back from being on loan, probably come in for pre-season, and then he might have the opportunity to impress during pre-season. A game, it'll be dependent on what the kind of what business gets done over the summer. Another aspect is how Hearts view him now that he's playing up front for Raith Rovers as well. Be interesting to see if they think that's something that's longer term. And if he does, I think it's one of those where even if he might impress in the summer, but they still view him as better going out and playing more minutes and then getting another loan spell. I do think if he goes out on loan, that he would then have to really impress and then have another extension. I think kind of the last thing any player wants to do when they get to a certain age is basically go from season to season, like signing 1-year deals and then going on loan, and then
yeah, that's his age that's making me ask the question, because he's at that age now where he's probably going to have to make a decision if it's not going to be at Hearts. Has he grown recently, Joe? I didn't realize he was so tall.
No, he's always been a good size.
Right.
Wiry is maybe the way I'll describe him. But
he's maybe just filled out a wee bit more. Maybe that's what it is. But he looked big in that Fife derby recently.
Yeah. He's got a good size, and he's really powerful. I know a Raith Rovers associate of ours will uses this word to criticise me because I described him as electric, and that's what he was. Against in the B team, he was absolutely electric, where he was just running past boys for fun. Can't really do that too much in the same way with Raith Rovers when he's playing through the middle, but he's got pace, and that's always something that clubs will look at, because pace can just kill teams. So he's got that one quality, real quality, and if he can add different bits to his game, which I think he's been doing at Raith Rovers, then he gives himself a chance, and he is certainly someone I really hope comes back. And if he doesn't if he isn't viewed as long term, then I'm sure he'll be fine and getting a club elsewhere. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I don't know if there's obviously the James Wilson he's playing on. Hopefully, We'll see him in the 2 games.
We will talk about James Wilson a lot in future. So I thought he was obvious, and I could just skip over that. But yeah, we could be talking about him as a record breaker over the next few days. So
yeah, and others probably. Another one would probably be Liam McFarlane. He is one of the number of highly rated young Hearts goalkeepers. He's been doing really well on loan at East Fife. I was actually planning to go down and watch him against Edinburgh City on Saturday, but now I won't be able to, because I think so he's been called up, and be keen to see if he gets any minutes. But that is the international break, where will be the Hearts players involved, I think, most days over the next week or so before they come back for into the squad ahead of the Celtic game next week on Saturday. We'll just move on and finish by talking about the bounce game that happened, where Hearts defeated St Johnstone 4-1. It allowed a number of fringe players have not been involved all that much, to get much needed minutes. It allowed Cammy Devlin to play the full game, and for the first time since going off with that head knock against St Mirren last month, he missed the last 6 matches. I suppose that was probably the biggest takeaway was Devlin's return, and especially ahead of the Celtic game next week.
Yes, it was. Sorry, I was slightly distracted there, but just Taylor Hogarth put Scotland under 17s 2-1 up. They've since
nice.
They've since conceded, and it's 2-2. But that's what I was looking to see who the number 18 was that had come off the bench and to put them 2-1 up, because they hadn't tweeted it out yet. But yeah, Taylor Hogarth, Hearts' Taylor Hogarth has come on and put them ahead, but they've since blown it and now are 2-0. But yes, Cammy Devlin, it's been a wee bit, it's been a little bit of a mini saga, hasn't it? Where every week we've been getting updates, and it's will he or won't he return? He's been a doubt, it feels like, for about a month of that.
Yeah.
Where we're waiting to see if there's adverse effects, and I think he might have been okay. It sounded like he might have been okay for the Ross County game, but they didn't rush it. But yes, to have him back and for him to play the 90 minutes, I know it's a less intense kind of atmosphere, a bounce game, but for him to get the 90 minutes, it's very encouraging, because that means he wouldn't even be able to play in that game if he hadn't fully come through the concussion protocol, I would imagine. Yeah. I don't think there's different rules for bounce matches. So I think that proves that he's clear of it, and he should be now properly available for for the next game.
Yeah, and I don't think Hearts would have played him if, as we've seen over the last 5-6 weeks, there was no danger they were going to take any risks with Devlin. We've seen it with head injuries, the one injury where you just simply don't take any risks, and it's always difficult. We've seen it with Peter Haring, how long he was out for. So, but no, I was just positive that not only did he play, but he got the full match. And I've spoken about it before, he's a naturally very fit guy, so it was just, I think, more than anything, just important to probably more of a mental side to play a game of football, to come through it, and hopefully there's no after effects, and then he's available for Celtic, as YouTube Disciple says. Cammy went out so we can play the Diamond, and yeah, there's with I don't think the Diamond will be an operation at Celtic Park, and I think it's good for Devlin to come back in ahead of a game at Celtic Park where you naturally think him and Benny can go back in and play.
It is going to be an interesting one whether him coming back is instantly a change of formation. I suppose you're right with it being at Celtic Park. It might be that he was ditching that formation regardless for that game. But afterwards, it'll be interesting to see what happens after that, which shape he goes with.
And aside from that, Harry Milne played some minutes. We still not seen him first for the first team, just because James Penrice just continues to play because he is doing well. And then we had Alan Forrest scoring 4 in the game, which away up in Gorgas, thoughts on Forrest scoring 4 in the bounce match?
I think it means he's going to get more first team opportunities, and it's going to anger more people in the Hearts support. No, I mean, hopefully he can take that on and contribute towards the end of the season, because Hearts need it, and he's shown that he can do it in bursts. He can have a burst of form. He did it initially when Critchley came in the door. He had it, I can't remember exactly, was it 2 seasons ago or something? It was just before he got given that longer contract. He had a spell where he scored a few goals. So he can do it. And Critchley clearly sees something in him as well, because he constantly uses him in certain situations. Like, it's not long until you see him come on, even if it's a substitute appearances to kind of at the weekend there. He's done that a few times. So, or to good effect, was it Dundee? I think it was Vargas that scored the goal, but it was him and Vargas both came on to stretch that game, and even more than it already was, and did it well. So Critchley likes something about him. I hope he takes confidence from that and scores some goals for Hearts between now and the end of the season. I really do.
That's what I see. That's essentially what I see Forrest's role is now. I don't think he's a starter, unless there's specific games where you maybe want a winger who works really hard. But I just see him as someone who you bring off the bench for fresh legs, and when the opposition are getting tired. Like you said, we've seen it where he's getting in goal scoring positions, for example, against who were we playing at home? Not there, but the team before.
Dundee?
Yeah, Dundee in the cup game where Shanklin played him in, and so he's on the counter attack. He'll get chances. So yeah, it's never a bad thing. Players scoring goals, even if it's in bounce games.
Just kind of related. I could not really work out what that team was. Was it a back three, or did they play a midfielder at right back? It was a team of midfielders essentially. It was like Smutek, Nair, and who was the other defender? It was the first team defender.
Milne was left back.
Milne, of course. So then I don't know who was at right back, but the team was Forrest, Mackay, Oda. I'm not going to remember them all now. But it was just all midfielders.
Yeah.
So one of them must 253 YouTube Disciples said, but it must have it must have been one of the midfielders at right back, and then I mean, a couple of those guys can play number 10, and you could play one of them as a forward. I guess Oda as a forward. I believe Forrest played on one of the wide positions. But yes, it was an odd group of players to read as a Hearts team.
Yeah, it was a real mishmash of players who just need to get minutes, players who have not got a future at Hearts, and players who are just on the fringes. Groove Tube Bass says, I'm slightly biased as I know Forrester, but I hope he does well. I think the diamond leaves him exposed. He just needs to build his confidence when going forward. I suppose that's it. There's a couple of questions that you starred. Ian Ferguson says, afternoon, all newly minted Hearts supporter from the States. Hello,
there was
Ian.
one earlier
welcome
in the
aboard.
season as well. I wonder whether, maybe tell us in the next show or something, but how you've come to be a Hearts fan. There was somebody right at the start of the season that commented with something similar, but
hopefully it's because of us. This show stumbled across it on YouTube.
But it was during that 8-game losing streak, so I never really kind of followed it up or anything. It didn't really seem the time to be highlighting things like that. But yes, I wonder where these two new, and I wonder if there's more stateside supporters are coming from.
But anyway, welcome you. And finally, Raymond Rain asks, can you confirm, do we have obligation to buy with Cabangu? I'd worry if we lose both Shanks and him in the summer, what our options up front would be. I can't confirm, but all I can say that I am confident that Cabangu will be a Hearts player. Beyond... but my confidence has been misplaced in the past. But yeah,
I think a safer way of saying it would be if both of them want it to happen, it probably will happen. Yes,
that's the best way to put it. If Hearts and Cabangu want it to happen, then it will happen. And yeah, Shankland, I would suspect that he will be heading somewhere else beyond the summer. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for commenting. We were only meant to go for 20 minutes, but as usual, we've gone over. Craig, thank you very much. I'll let you have get away and enjoy your evening. We'll be back on probably Friday, probably the last one before we're going on holiday. We might do a wee Q&A, so if anyone's about Friday afternoon, then drop in and fire us any and everything around Hearts, and we'll try and answer as best we can. Until then, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube. It's free, or you can maybe go to heartstandard.co.uk and subscribe to the website. That's not free, but we would appreciate that support nonetheless. We will have a feature tomorrow on the Hearts Hummel kit partnership deal, and then Craig's piece on Adam Forrester on Friday ahead of the weekend. But enjoy the rest of your week, and goodbye.